Hello, my name is Rosalind Sadleir, and in this presentation I will describe findings from our recent MRM paper titled Multi-Shot Echo-Planar MREIT for Fast Imaging of Conductivity, Current Density, and Electric Field Distributions. This work was carried out by our team in the School of Biological and Health Systems Engineering at Arizona State University. We are developing a technique known as MREIT, which stands for Magnetic Resonance Electrical Impedance Tomography. MREIT is a method of imaging low-frequency electrical properties of tissue. This is done by examining magnetic flux density created by a known applied current that has been encoded in MR phase images. The available component of this magnetic flux density, the Z component or BZ, may be processed to produce current density, electric field or conductivity images via Maxwell's equations. The electrical impedance properties of biological tissues vary as a function of frequency. Because the timing of current waveforms applied to objects are tied to MR imaging repetition times, the electrical properties recovered in MREIT are characteristically below 50 Hz. Typical MREIT imaging pulse sequences use slower spin or gradient echo methods. We are interested in using MREIT to follow dynamic electrical impedance changes, such as fluctuations in conductivity that occur during electroporation heating or during neural function. These applications make it necessary to develop faster MREIT sequences. Here we describe development of fast echo-planar imaging MREIT methods. EPI acquisition can result in image distortion, and here we concentrate on mitigating these artifacts in the phase images we use for MREIT reconstructions. EPI images can be gathered in one shot, that is, all case baselines acquired within one TR, or over multiple shots. We acquired a total of 64 case baselines in the imaging protocol used here. Therefore, for example, 4-shot data involved acquiring case-based data in 4 groups of 16 case-based lines. We studied how reconstruction quality varied as we increased the number of shots in factors of 2 from 1 to 64. 64-shot data corresponded to a conventional spin echo sequence. In each case, collected case-based data was corrected and then converted into magnitude and phase images. The phase images were scaled to produce magnetic flux density information and then used to reconstruct absolute or relative conductivity distributions and electric field. In all cases, data were compared to simulations that were performed using finite element software. The simulations produced current density distributions within the imaged objects. These distributions were then converted via the Biot-Savart law to produce magnetic flux density distributions. We used agarose gel-based phantoms to test our methods. The gel phantoms consisted of a 0.71 Siemens per meter conductivity outer region. A non-conducting hollow insulating object was placed in the center of the phantom. The insulating object was also filled with agarose gel. 10 mA MREIT imaging currents were applied via carbon electrodes placed on the outside of the phantom. Currents were applied through diametrically opposed pairs of electrodes, either horizontally or vertically. Images were gathered in a 3 mm thick slice centered on the electrodes. We used spin echo EPI sequences with 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 or 32 shots. The spin echo sequence shown in the center image is equivalent to a 64-shot EPI image. Case-based data for EPI acquisitions were corrected using 2 methods. First, Nyquist ghost artifacts were corrected. 2 reference scans were collected using a phase blip sequence. Then, case-based data were regrouped to map phase errors caused by inconsistencies between odd and even EPI echoes. The calculated 2D phase map was then used to remove artifacts in newly acquired data. Second, geometric phase distortions were estimated by collecting EPI images with no current and varying echo times. 9 phase modulation factor maps were then produced by computing the ratio of pixels in consecutive image pairs of MS, SE, EPI data and averaged to improve the SNR of the phase map. Note that the combination of methods corrected both the magnitude and phase of resulting images. Phase data were converted to magnetic flux density Z component images by complex dividing images gathered with positive and negatively polarized currents for each pair of electrodes. Once BZ data had been recovered and corrected, we used either the harmonic BZ algorithm or an absolute conductivity reconstruction method to produce conductivity images. In both cases, data gathered from both current pairs were combined to solve for a representative conductivity value in each voxel. The harmonic BZ algorithm produces relative conductivity images. These images were computed using Korea 2.0 software. Absolute conductivity images were calculated via an intermediate step where the projected current density was calculated with the aid of finite element model data. Projected current density data were then reconstructed to log conductivity data using a one-step technique. The quality of reconstructed current density and conductivity images were assessed using relative error measures. For current density, the relative error was the root mean square of the difference between projected and true current densities divided by the RMS true current density. Conductivity reconstructions were expressed in relative contrast terms as a percentage. This figure shows results of finite element simulations showing, from left to right, actual conductivity data, voltage distributions caused by MREIT current, the three components of the true current density, and finally, on the right, the BZ distributions that would be expected for either the horizontal, the top row, or vertical, bottom row, current directions. Here are some results showing corrections applied to some multi-shot images and comparisons of magnitude SNR values in EPI images with spin echo images. In Part A, we can see uncorrected on the left and corrected on the right 1, 2, 4, and 8 shot magnitude images. Images gathered with more than 8 shots were not obviously different after correction and were very similar to spin echo images. Part B shows the two alternative methods that were used for calculating SNR from magnitude images. Part C shows how SNR estimates varied as a function of shot number and how SNR changed after correction. In all cases and with both methods, SNR improved after correction. At best, SNR was just over half the spin echo values, and that was found in corrected two-shot images. This figure shows magnitude on the top line and corrected BZ images gathered for each direction. Also shown in this figure are BZ images after they had been denoised and inpainted using previously developed MREIT techniques. In the magnitude images on the top row, you can see some residual distortion around the electrode ports for the one-shot EPI image. In general, images of this object were more prone to distortions because of the high spatial frequencies contained in the object ports. Here we see profile plots of the corrected and denoised images from the previous slide. Part B of this figure shows another error estimate. This time, instead of SNR, we calculated standard deviations in BZ data, measured in Tesla, showing the effect on BZ image noise levels of applying denoising and inpainting. Finally, here we show projected current density components and magnitudes for horizontal or vertical current directions as a function of shot number. These images may be compared with simulated values shown here at the left. Conductivity images were reconstructed using either the harmonic BZ algorithm or the absolute conductivity method. Reconstructed images are shown here as a function of shot number and may be compared with the simulated reconstructions on the left. The lower line of images shows estimated horizontal current electric field distributions calculated from projected current densities divided by absolute conductivity images for each shot number. Calculated electric fields inside the anomaly have been masked out. This slide shows profile views of reconstructed conductivities and calculated electric fields as a function of shot number. Simulated values are indicated by red dotted lines. Now we see errors in projected J and conductivity contrasts as a function of shot number. The top plot shows relative RMS errors in projected current density for horizontal and vertical current directions. Projected current densities were in error by at most approximately 10%, and absolute conductivity reconstructions were more faithful, producing up to 80% of the actual contrast, than relative Korea reconstructions, in which only approximately 40% of actual contrast was recovered. Although projected J reconstructions showed increases in relative errors as the shot number decreased, Maximal overall errors in one-shot images were only 5% larger than those gathered using spin echo sequences. Ultimately, relative contrast errors in conductivity reconstruction algorithms were similar, whether imaging time was 128 seconds for spin echo or 2 seconds for one-shot. In conclusion, we found that it is possible to perform fast MREIT imaging using multi-shot spin echo EPI. Excellent agreement was observed in reconstructions of projected current density and conductivity in low-number shot EPI data compared with the gold standard spin echo results. We anticipate that these methods will be useful in further studies monitoring dynamic electrical conductivity changes or in speeding acquisition of multiple slice MREIT data. This work was performed in the Neuroelectricity and Probe laboratories at the School of Biological and Health Systems Engineering at Arizona State University. We thank all lab colleagues. This work was made possible with the assistance of funding from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke.